Welcome to the Nest Podcast, your weekly home for sports news, video game reviews, and hot takes with your hosts, Brandon, Zach, and Justin. Enjoy the show.
What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Nest Podcast. This is episode 89, the Mike Ditka episode, and is presented by Da Sportszilla. I'm your host, Brandon. Joining me are my co-hosts, Zach and Justin. And Justin, it looks like you've lost about 5 or 6 years since the last time you were on.
Yeah, man, it's getting a little itchy. I wanted to feel clean, even though I can't leave the house, so I decided to shave it off. He'll be back here in a few weeks.
Shaved off the quarantine beard, which, you know, you had going a little bit before the quarantine started and all that, but shaved it off. You had a pretty long, lengthy beard. You were telling me before we came on that it was how long? About what?
About 8 inches when I combed it out, yeah.
Nice.
Wow. So you lost quite a bit. Do you feel lighter?
I feel clean.
You feel clean. That's about it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, for me, it's day 26 without baseball. I know, you know, it took probably a good 30, 40 days for you to get that good amount of beard. Baseball's 26 days without it. My beard's getting pretty thick, pretty full. So I've been going with my quarantine beard too. That's all that's keeping me entertained right now. You know, thankfully ESPN came along and thankfully they dropped this Michael Jordan's Last Dance 10-part documentary thing, because that at least gave me something entertaining to watch. What do you guys think of that?
Amazing so far. I was really looking forward to watching the history of Jordan and the Bulls, because I was just a little kid at the end of his career. I barely remember him playing on the Bulls. I do remember watching him on the Wizards, but we all know what a dumpster fire that was. And I really enjoyed the first couple episodes, especially the drama behind the team and all the drama with the GM and Scottie Pippen and all that stuff. I had no clue that was happening. And it's really awesome to see all that behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I really took away from it was that Michael Jordan did more than play minor league baseball.
He did, yeah. He had a basketball career as well.
You know, when I started hearing this Michael Jordan documentary being brought up, I had to dig through my cards, and lo and behold, boom,
That's
nice.
a Michael Jordan rookie card from when he played for the Chicago White Sox organization. It's pretty awesome. No professional experience is what it says on the back.
I know I'm a little different than Zach. I'm older, so I was a diehard Jordan fan. I was a Bulls fan. I saw every single one of these games live when it happened. And I was old enough to know what was going on. And I tried to do everything that Michael Jordan did back in the day. I mean, every time I would shoot a foul shot, I'd stick my tongue out. I mean, just basically, I tried to do. He was my what today's generation's Kobe Bryant to me,
Or
That's
LeBron.
or LeBron. That's why when people argue that LeBron's the GOAT, I know he wasn't the GOAT. I saw Jordan play live. That's how I feel about it. But another thing, which the documentary hasn't talked about yet, but Jordan is one hell of a golfer. Like, he's a scratch golfer. He's actually played in some professional tournaments and stuff as well. I mean, he's one of those guys that could probably just take up water polo and be one of the best ever. I mean, it's just worth I can never say that word.
Work ethic.
Yes. And his drive, and just there ain't people like him nowadays. He's one in a million.
Well, according to the back of this baseball card, he can't just pick up anything and do it, because no professional experience on the back of his professional baseball card. So, it is what it is. But I get your point. He is one of those all-around athletes that's good at many, many things. And one of the big takeaways that I've gotten from the first 2 episodes is just everybody's talking about his consistency, how his work ethic is always bar none, how he's always the first guy in the gym and the last guy to leave, how he's there helping out his teammates. He was, the kid in the driveway shooting hoops until 2-3 o'clock in the morning till his parents made him go inside and go to bed. It's incredible. And like after watching the first episode or two of the Tiger King a few weeks ago, everybody was instantly hooked and they knew that they were onto something. Just like that show, I think we're just scratching the surface now of the magnitude of the details that we're going to uncover. We're still going to go just like Lion King or Tiger King, just down a winding path where a murder's involved. We're going to see eventual ownership of big cats in the Charlotte area. He is now the owner of the Bobcats. So Michael Jordan is the Bobcat King of the NBA.
It sure is.
I'm making that a meme. It's going to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting to see his background too, which I didn't know a whole lot about, and his upbringing and stuff like that. And I kind of started putting two and two together. His household was very competitive, and he had an older brother that was very competitive. And Jordan stated, had he not had his brother be so competitive, and he had that drive to try to beat his brother, he wouldn't be the athlete he is today. I think that's absolutely paramount for the making of a person like Michael Jordan. You have to have something to strive for, and it has to eat you up inside enough to the point where you're willing to forego all other venues of life to just excel at whatever task you're doing. And obviously his was basketball. And it was very interesting to see that. And it all makes sense, that you don't just wake up one day. Yeah, I think I'm going to try to be the best at whatever it is. It's a long process of, as we saw, just the pressure, I guess.
And he kept such a humble ass attitude, like going into the NBA. He was the college basketball player of the year. He was at one point a national champion in college. I believe he was on a Olympic team before he was ever a professional. I think that's what they said.
It was after the draft, before the season started.
So this dude had all of this experience and all of he was the best player on the court the entire time. And then he's like, yeah, I've still got to earn it in the NBA. I've still got to earn my spot. That speaks volumes to the type of person that he is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool.
I keep thinking about, the Houston Rockets. Of course, they picked Olajuwon, which is a Hall of Famer. And back in college, he was the Zon of his day. He was the best of the best of the best, and nobody was close to him. So I can understand that. But I keep thinking about, what if Jordan went number 2 and it was Jordan and Drexler on the same team? Now, I know why they didn't do that, but just think of that. If it was Jordan Drexler duo instead of Jordan Pippen, oh my God.
And what's funny is I wore number 22 pretty much my whole life in every sport that I ever played because I was a Clyde Drexler fan.
Yeah, that would have been a duo, a 1-2 punch right there.
Yeah. That would have been a team that they would have never lost.
And it would have been like the Warriors of today.
Yeah, just a pure dynasty.
Yeah, but I mean, the way they did it, though, you got to say, you got people like Rodman. Rodman was a terrible basketball player, but he could get rebounds and he had a motor like no other. He didn't have to score.
Yep.
They kind of pieced it together to make the perfect team.
Right. And I think that's a key for Rodman, is he was able to fit because he was out there hustling and getting the rebounds, but then he was willing to give it up to somebody else to score.
Because he couldn't shoot. He was garbage.
The egos didn't come into play because he didn't care. He didn't want to score.
Yeah.
He might tip it in and get 4 points a night or whatever, but he didn't care. So he gave it up. So the egos were allowed to just, all right, I'm still going to get my 30 points a night.
Yep.
Imagine like somebody like that today. That would be James Harden's best friend.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the huge difference in generations of basketball. I don't think you can be a star in this day and age and have no ego, because every star athlete thinks that they deserve everything. And there's not very many guys that just give up like Rodman did and said, I'll just do my job and that's it. I don't need to have the ball all night. And I think that's why the Warriors split up inevitably, because they all wanted to be king over there. And, you can't just pay everyone a supermax deal. There's got to be a guy who takes a back seat, and they couldn't do it. And they got their championships, and, several players have moved on. So it just goes to show, in my opinion, the difference in generations. I think that generation was more humble.
And another big difference is that players today can play every position. Back in the day, if you were a center, that's all you did was play center.
Yep.
If you was a forward, you played forward. Nowadays, you got people like LeBron, Zion. They can bring the ball down the court. They can run the 2. They can run the 3. They can run the 4. It don't matter. You have to be able to play every single position. So, in other words, you don't have to find that specific center for your team. Some teams don't even run a center. They run 3 or 4 forwards.
Now, do you think that's a product of like the youth leagues in basketball being so good and so competitive that they get plugged in on these teams where it's like, okay, well, you're not the power forward of this team. This other kid that's a stud is. So you're going to not play the 4 that you've played your whole life. You're going to play the 3 now. So
That's
they have to
exactly
learn
what
how
it
to play.
is.
So yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense that they would have to do that. And in basketball, there's only 5 positions to rotate between. So,
and the best are on the floor. It happened to Marley. Marley's played forward or center her whole life. And then last year in middle school, coach was like, hey, I need you to run the 1 and 2.
So now all of a sudden she's a guard.
And she's never played guard in her life, but now she's having to learn the whole new position when all she's played since she was 5 years old was forward.
Right.
So, and like you said, when you get into AAU ball, the best 5 players are on the court. If 5 of those players are all centers, guess what? There's 5 centers on the court. They're going to find the one that can dribble the ball down the court.
Right.
It's, man, like I told you, I watch so many of these tournaments. There's 13-year-old kids like throwing it down like it's nothing. Whenever we were 13, we did the old school layup. We couldn't even touch the net. Like we wasn't even taught how to do that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And nowadays they see it on TV and, they've got jump shoes and they're outside trying to jump higher every day. And like I said, in 6th, 7th grade, they're already throwing it down like they're in college. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to see Jordan today, like going back through it all, because he didn't even make his high school team till his sophomore year.
Yeah.
He wasn't that good.
He'd be exponentially better.
Wow, he would be sick.
Yep.
And to think like he was that ahead of his time. He was that far ahead of all of the other competition. It's no wonder that he was such a draw financially for the Chicago Bulls. They said from the 3rd game of his career, it went from only being able to sell a 1/3 of the tickets to the 3rd game of his career, nothing but sellouts.
That's crazy.
Like, talk about instant payback for your entire organization. He made that organization millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I think you alluded to it earlier, Zach. They paid Scottie Pippen peanuts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was a very wild thing to hear. But I mean, it honestly makes sense. If you're going to be the number 2 guy to Michael Jordan, man, you're going to have to check your ego at the door, because there's no way you're going to step up to that level. And that's what Scottie did, for the majority of his tenure at Chicago. He played second best and he did it extremely well for, like you said, peanuts. And at some point he got sick of it and all that loyalty, what seems like loyalty to the Bulls, they did not repay him, and eventually he moved on. It's very sad to see, because Jordan was talking about it in some of the interviews, and for an organization to go from dog shit before Jordan to just the epitome of a sports organization, for them to want to cut ties with all the players that made that happen before they were ready, I think was a colossal mistake. I would ride that horse till the fucking wheels fell off.
Yep. I mean, but a lot of time these owners, they get so greedy and they want to sell when it's hot or whatever, sell when these players are hot and bring in the next crop of young talent and try to keep that sustained level. That's ultimately what the Warriors were trying to do, was to keep all of those players until they could bring the next batch of young players to replace guys like KD and stuff like that. But you can't just replace KD overnight. So
absolutely. And I think that's where the front office for that Bulls team went wrong. You're not going to be able to replace that team. You need to ride it out as long as you can, enjoy it while it's happening, because something like this is not going to happen in anyone's lifetime again. You can't just replace these players with newcomers and expect to have the same result. It's a once in a lifetime occurrence that he comes around. And that's where I see that they went wrong, is they thought that they could move some pieces around and keep this franchise at a high level, and you just can't do that.
No, just same things happened to the Warriors this past year. They finally, they finally couldn't hold that squad together. So they let Durant went his way and this and that, and they were mediocre at best last year. So they went from winning it year after year after year and being in the championship to being kind of garbage overnight.
Yeah, and that can be attributed to injuries as well. Both Steph and goddamn, I can't think of the other dude's name.
Klay.
Yeah, Klay Thompson were injured. And when your top players are injured and you can't afford to have anyone else on your team, it's over.
Can you imagine Klay playing for what Scotty played for financially?
It would never happen.
That's insane. Like,
he'd be getting, probably to today's equivalent, he'd get paid single-digit $1 million per year money, I would imagine.
That's unheard of. That's unreal for a number two.
Scottie Pippen was the 122nd, I think they said, highest paid player. So if you equate that to today, I mean, he'd be so far down the line of highest paid player. Oh my God.
Let's see. What else have you guys liked about it? Justin, you haven't said a lot, but what aspects of the show have you really enjoyed?
There's a couple things. One, I'm a Vols fan and everything, but I grew up in the Jordan era, so I've always liked the Tar Heels.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been my squad. And Dean Smith telling him to go to the draft was absolutely awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any other coach would be like, hey, come back for senior year. We're going to make another run for it.
Yeah.
He did what was best for Jordan, and I think Jordan a lot of his credit goes to Dean Smith. And I also like the fact that Jordan was talking about as a rookie when he went in the room and they were all doing coke and weed and all this stuff, and he just went home. Nowadays, rookies wouldn't do that. They would try to find some way to fit in, but Jordan didn't care about that.
Nope.
All he wanted to do was win, and that's what made him great. That's a mentality that 99.9% of kids don't have today.
Yeah.
I know if I knocked on that door, even though I didn't want to do all the stuff they were doing, I would find a way to hang out and fit in. And Jordan didn't want nothing to do with that because he was thinking about the consequences, even if he was there.
Yep.
And that's what made him great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's the big downfall for a lot of teen athletes. You can see kids that are just naturally good at whatever sport, and that kind of makes people not try as hard and not work as hard because they don't have to be as good as they are. But then once the difficulty gets raised, the bar, it becomes even higher. So you're not as good as you think you are. And those kids who continue to work will continue to get better and progress on into the collegiate and the professional levels. And those kids who were great at their junior varsity team or something like that, they fizzle out because they quit working or don't work at all because they're just riding on the coattails of their natural ability. And I think a lot of people do that just in general. And again, that's another reason why Jordan is just so many miles above regular people, is because didn't give a shit about anything other than winning.
And something else, this show is going to open people's eyes, I think, to those of us that got to see Jordan play, that got to see, Jordan versus Bird, Jordan versus Magic, Jordan and Isaiah battling it back and forth. We got to see those classic matchups. The people that didn't get to watch that grew up in the Kobe era or the LeBron era, it's going to open their eyes and they're going to be like, damn, okay, now I get why everyone says MJ is the GOAT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing to watch a highlight reel on YouTube of Jordan, but to see this whole ensemble of everything is really good to open people's eyes, just to see how good he was. And comparatively, I mean, no one comes close. I mean, yes, we can say that Kobe and LeBron are next up, but I think still they're comparatively not close to Jordan.
All right. While you guys were talking, I was doing a little bit of research, and you hit the nail on the head. The 122nd highest paid was what Scottie Pippen was. He made at that time $2.8 million.
That's nothing.
This year's 122nd highest paid player is Andre Robertson, and he makes $10.7 million.
That's nuts.
So before I said it, who had ever heard of Andre Robertson? Justin, probably you.
Just because he played with Harden and stuff for the Thunder.
So that one out of the three of us has even heard of the guy, but most people out there know who Scottie Pippen is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. That's insane. I wonder if he regrets that decision to just kind of take a back seat as big as he did. I mean, I get it, taking a back seat, but I wonder if he maybe didn't ask for
too much.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a legend because of Jordan. Who'd have said that if he went somewhere else that he would even be remotely in the category of what we're talking about?
Right. Yeah. I mean, same thing like as earlier. Imagine if it was Scotty and Clyde Drexler together instead of what was it, Terry Porter?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, you never know. Jordan made a lot of people good.
Absolutely.
What if Scotty played with Charles Barkley? It could have been something completely different.
It would have been, because he wouldn't have had Jordan running the point. You know what I mean? He wouldn't have had Jordan getting him the ball.
Ooh, but they would still have Thunder Dan. Justin said, "Fuck it, I'm out of here."
There he is. He wanted the bottom spot.
I guess that's it.
I like
that's weird. Whenever the stream changes, that it bounces you guys around like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What's funny too for me is watching Steve Kerr and all this stuff. I always kind of considered him to be just a coattail on that team, and more or less he was. But he had his position, just a shooter basically, which is definitely a good position to be in on that kind of team.
Oh right, yeah, like Steve Kerr won big games. John Paxson won big games because they were clutch shooters. They were go to the corner, go to your spot, find it, we'll hit you, boom, hit that big shot, hit that last minute shot.
Yeah. Ray Allen is a lot the same in that regard, especially for that 08 Celtics team.
Yeah.
Just open and take a shot, and it's almost money every time.
I mean, Reggie Miller was phenomenal at doing just that, being a spot shooter. Mm-hmm. He would run down the court. He would always have a good point guard like Mark Jackson that could find him wherever he was, find that spot, hit that shot. Spot shooters are known throughout the league, throughout the NBA history. Those are two of the best of the era, I guess, because they were on big teams.
Yeah.
Kerr did his thing.
Yep.
I don't think he's that great of a coach, but he was a great role player on those early and mid 90s Bulls teams.
Yep, for sure.
Justin, you were lucky enough to get to grow up watching it along with me. I remember the second three-peat a little better than I remember the first three-peat. But God, man, it's great getting to relive it. But as exciting as it is, we also have modern sports and current sports that have things coming out soon, and that's the NFL draft. And Justin, I know you're excited about that. You've been blowing up our text this week talking about, dude, I'm just watching the draft stuff, watching draft coverage. So enlighten us, my man. Tell us what's going on. What should we be paying attention for coming up this Thursday?
I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, right now it's all speculation because 95% of what they say that's going to happen, just other than the number one pick, usually don't happen because you don't know who's going to jump in, who's going to trade this or that.
Right.
They do have Tua going down. He's now the third quarterback behind Oregon's quarterback. But
Is
he's
that
still,
Herbert?
yeah, they got him going ahead. But Tua's still going in the top 10.
So that have him slipping to like 6, 7, somewhere in there.
They have him slipping to 6, and they have your boy outside of the top 10, possibly second round.
Who's my boy?
Which is crazy. Oklahoma quarterback.
Oh, Jalen. Yeah, he'll definitely go second round.
But that's just crazy to me because I would take Jalen over Tua because we saw what he did this past year. He did it with 2 teams instead of 1. I mean, he did it with a team outside of Alabama, and he wasn't injured.
Yep.
So personally, for me, that's my pick. I know for my team, we need a corner really bad, and I'm hoping we can stay put and take Henderson out of Florida. We're bringing the link to Clemson defensive end, chasing quite a bit. But over the last 2 days, they're talking about us trading up in the top 10, possibly even top 5 to get Brown out of Auburn, which is the number 1 defensive tackle in the draft.
That would be an aggressive move for the Falcons. They're not notorious for being aggressive movers on draft day.
Last time we did it was Julio Jones, and we see how that worked out.
Yeah. They seem to be pretty aggressive this offseason. Going and get Gurley.
Yeah, they were more aggressive this offseason than they normally are. Normally, you don't hear nothing about them. But in the draft, they're always real. They'll give up their pick before they move up to get another one. So if they do this, like they did with Julio, they must have a really good feeling on the guy. So as a fan, all I can see is I'm outside looking in, so I have to respect the fact that they're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Because I won't know until a few years down the road if that's the case or not. But either way, I'm going to be happy. I hope we stay put because we have more needs, so we need more picks. And I have to think if we move up that far in the draft, we're going to be giving away our second, possibly more. So I would prefer to stay put, but I'm hearing a lot of stuff going around right now.
You mentioned the possibility of trading up, and being here in Jacksonville, I've heard a lot of rumors and a lot of rumblings about the potential that Leonard Fournette is being shopped around. So that would be interesting to see if the Jags are willing to move on a former first round, I think top 10 overall, if I'm not mistaken, draft pick in his own right, Leonard Fournette. I don't know. Could they move up as high as say number 2?
Where are they at right now?
They have the number 9 and number 20 in the first round.
If they were to package, say a first, like say they could even package the 20th pick and the second round pick with Fournette, they could move up and keep their 9 and 2. And I could see that being a good trade for them and for the other team.
And then, that would be to Washington. So Washington would get a dynamic running back potentially to put in there with Dwayne Haskins. Yeah. Increases their offense. Plus, they still get a first-round draft pick in this round. Leaves the Jags going with the number 2 pick overall. Do they stay with Chase Young?
I think you have to. I mean,
the best player available at that time or whatever kind of thing.
He's by far the best player available. I mean, it's hands down. I think he's better than Burrow, but Burrow fits a need that
a specific need.
Specific need. You would have to. Wouldn't give away that much for a quarterback, especially unknown talent. Because you've got a decent quarterback right now. And there's other free agents out there like Cam and other people that you could fill in your roster. So if they're going to do that and they're going to risk moving up that far, 100% they're going to take either Brown, the defensive tackle I'm talking about, or Young.
Yeah, I think so. And, Doug Marrone, the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, is a defensive-minded coach. If he has anything to do with it, he's going to want to make sure that his defense is good to go for years to come. They got a winner for sure last year whenever they picked up Josh Allen, the defensive end from Kentucky. But I don't know. Can they get lightning in the bottle 2 years in a row and get another defensive stud to be a defensive rookie of the year candidate?
Chase Young is up there with Allen. I would actually, him and Allen are quite similar.
Can you imagine those on opposite edges?
Yeah, it'd be sick. Especially not as much right now, but say 5 years down the road, those two would be unstoppable.
Remember the old J.J. Watt and Clowney days when they actually used them properly?
Yeah, just like Clowney. It took Clowney, like 2 or 3 years before he was relevant? When he came in, they were acting like he was God, and he was garbage until his third year of the NFL.
Yeah. And speaking of being garbage right at your NFL debut, before The Last Dance started, Peyton had his show on, and he was talking about something at the end of it where he was talking about Burrow, and he was saying that his first year in the league was just god awful. He threw something like 20 something interceptions and was just terrible. And that just goes to show you just the level of difficulty that is raised once you enter into the NFL. And a lot of teams screw up the whole first round pick, especially quarterbacks, when they just give them the playbook and expect them to go out there and carry the team. I don't think it's possible. I mean, unless you have some phenomenal, absolute mega mind of a quarterback, it's a lot to carry to try to manage an entire team, an offense more specifically, against the best defenses in the world. So honestly, if I were one of these teams that has a good first round pick, I would stay away from quarterback. I would try to go defense, any other position, honestly, and just build from there.
Even if you have the first overall pick with the option to get Burrow, even if it comes up to you and you have the option to get Tua or any of these guys. Wow. Okay.
If the Bengals hired me as their general manager tomorrow, that would be my advice. Just trade that pick for how many ever picks we can get and build back up. Because if Andy Dalton sticks around, great. If he doesn't, there's free agents out there to be picked up.
Yeah, I could see that, but at the same time, the gap is so big. But if you get that quarterback like a Peyton Manning or like that could set you up for the next 20 years of your football team. So
but let me stop you right there, Justin. Let me stop you right there. As a Tennessee fan, you know that Peyton Manning was good for several years. He played 4 years at the University of Tennessee and led that team each year with winning records. We knew what we were getting with Peyton Manning.
Yep.
Joe Burrow's had one good season.
Yeah, he was one of the top rated high school quarterbacks. So he's done it before. I think he was just in a bad spot. Now, I agree. I don't think Burrow's good enough to be number one pick. Not at all. I would maybe say I'll take him outside of the top 10, but I still think he's first round talent.
Sure.
But number one, I don't think he's that good. But
no, he had a phenomenal year of college and took the country by storm, and it was the LSU show all year, especially with their coach as eccentric as he is. Everyone was just following that story. It was the Cinderella story of the year. This kid got cut, made a team. Now they're going for a championship, and they did it. It's just a good story to cap off your collegiate career, which thus in turn boosted his draft stock. And the exact opposite happened for Tua, which is why he's falling. He got hurt, wasn't able to play, and now people are kind of skeptical as to how good he actually is, and they don't want to take that chance. Same kind of deal, except just completely opposite ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah, and to further drive home the point, like I'm pretty good for giving credit where credit is due, and like Taysom Hill, Harvey, usually is good about predicting guys early on or whatever, and saying that he thinks they're going to be the shit or whatever. He didn't start talking about Joe Burrow until midway through this season. So that's how I know that he was just a 1-year guy, because a dude that follows LSU hardcore didn't really have much excitement for him until, oh shit, it's getting exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll give him this, whenever he played in the Georgia Dome for that championship game,
Mm-hmm.
my God, dude. I've
Oh,
never
he
seen,
lit it the freak up, man.
that was one of the best quarterback plays I've ever seen in college football history. And so you see that as a coach and you're like, oh God, like what if, can he do this? I can understand the hype, but like I said, I'm with you guys. I personally wouldn't go for it. But if I was a franchise of a team, he's going to sell tickets. He's going to sell jerseys. It's not the Browns.
And we're all sitting here. Yeah, that's true. It's not the Browns.
Yeah.
We're all sitting here. We're talking about all the defensive guys that are so good in this draft, and that's where the talent really lies. But this draft is expected to have a ton of first round picks from the offensive side, whether it be quarterbacks or wide receivers. That's another section that we have to address. You've got 2 from Alabama alone that are projected in the top 10,
Yeah.
or in the first round at least. I mean,
Yeah. As soon as you mentioned other talent other than quarterback, I would immediately say I would take any Alabama wide receiver before I'd take Joe Burrow.
whoa.
I mean,
Okay.
they're just absolutely plug and play talent. You know what I mean? Their job doesn't necessarily change as much as a quarterback's job does. When you get drafted in the NFL as a wide receiver, go out there, run routes, and catch balls, just like you've been doing. And
Right.
I think they're a lot more solid of a pick.
I don't know what to say about that. It's difficult. I know my boy Juwan Jennings. I just hope he gets drafted. I think he's got the mentality of those guys and possible athleticism. He got in some trouble. He didn't really have the best guy throwing in the ball. I'm trying to think if there's any other Tennessee guy that's really up there. And this year, I don't feel like Tennessee's not really going to make many waves per se. Alabama, like you said, will always make waves. LSU will as well. Let's see. Okay, okay. I was going to say, who said that? Zach said that. But I'm sitting here looking for the quarterback that we discussed earlier from Oklahoma, and
Jalen Hurts.
I don't even see Hurts. Like I'm going through the top 100, and I'm in like 150 category, and I still hadn't found him.
Yeah, he's fallen in a lot of people's draft stock. He didn't have that great of a combine, and it's hurt him. He's not had a lot of guys being able to see him in person lately. Yeah, they've got tons of tape they can go on, but I guess that's not good enough for these pro scouts. I guess they want to see what they're doing now. But that's what I'm saying. Like for somebody like the New England Patriots, they don't have to jump on a quarterback in the first round, because they could wait and get Jalen Hurts in the 3rd, maybe 4th round. By the way, the Pats are loaded with draft picks later in the draft.
Yeah, they got Hurts at the 100th overall player right now.
So there you go.
That's crazy.
That's easily 3rd round that he's projected to slip. And I mean, that's a hell of a quarterback that you can get in the 3rd round.
If you told me I could take Young or somebody else as my 1st or 2nd pick, and I could turn around and get Hurts even in the 2nd round to the 3rd round, oh, come on. It's no question that's what you do.
Yep. It kind of reminds me of fantasy football. Typically, the strategy is to wait to pick up a quarterback till the 4th, 5th round, maybe even later, because the guys that are going to get points are still going to be there. and you can pad your running backs and your wide receivers before you pick a quarterback. There's always that guy that goes out, and this year it'll probably be Lamar Jackson he'll get picked up in the first round or something like that. But I think there's plenty of talent out there to be picked up later, and you might as well get more draft picks that are harder to come by than another fucking quarterback that everyone's freaked out about for the 5th, 6th year in a row, where this year is the year of the number one quarterback is the next fucking ridiculous player that never pans out.
And I love it when it goes and runs. Like, you can't never predict the draft because it could be going one way, and then all of a sudden a quarterback's taking at 5, and then all of a sudden people are trading up, and it's quarterback 5, 6, 7, 8, and they get in this little run. Now, if you're a team in the back and you don't need that position, you're like, yeah, take them off, because you know that your guy's dropping down from that list. But yeah, it's very similar. It's just instead of playing for, you know, a couple $100 like us and a trophy, you're playing for your city. So
yeah, your job's on the line.
I would love to be in one of the boardrooms, like not during the draft because we get to see a little bit of that, but like the weeks coming up to the draft.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I want to see how they put it on the board, how they come up with their, you know, their top players, all the stuff they do. I would love to see that.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It probably looks very, very, very much like how I get ready for our drafts. I've got spreadsheets, I've got graphs, I've got all kinds of stuff just littered all over the walls and all that stuff, just, you know, ready to go. I look like I'm, you know, plotting out, trying to catch a serial killer or something, trying to make sure that I narrow down my number one draft pick. And like you guys have been saying, it's not normally a quarterback that I'm targeting in the first round. So it is what it is. You know, talking about fantasy, Justin, you mentioned before we came on that you've been rewatching The League, which is one of the all-time great shows available out there. What season did you say you're on?
I just started season 5 right before this episode. I do it every year before the draft and before fantasy. For some reason I'll start over episode 1 and I'll watch it back over. I think Rexon's wife's about to get killed, if I'm not mistaken.
It started getting crazy there towards the last couple seasons, but
it's like they run out of plots, you know what I mean?
You can only talk about fantasy football for so long.
Yeah, but Jenny just won the Shiva Bowl, and Kevin just won the Ruxin, because you know they changed the name from Sacco to
Sacco,
Ruxin.
yeah.
So that's where I'm at now. Yeah, man, what a show! It's up there at the office. I could watch it 100 times, and even though I know what's going on, I laugh every time. It's still entertaining to me.
You know, our football league is named the Chalupa Batman Fantasy Football Cup after Chalupa Batman from The League.
I love that episode.
Say what, Justin?
I said Christopher. Every time he says that, she always says Christopher. He says CB.
CB. Was it Christopher Benjamin or something like that?
It was something like that.
Oh, that's great.
Chalupa Batman.
Yep.
Can you imagine your wife giving birth and your whole fantasy team bust in while she's pushing, and then having the guy on the guitar with the name right when he comes out and shit? That would be something that would just that's legendary, man.
Yep.
That's the stuff that only can happen in shows, because otherwise the husband would be killed for his friends busting in there and stuff like that. But anyway, let's see. Moving on, the state of Florida. I want to talk about this for a little bit, see what you guys think.
That's crazy.
Well, yeah, you know, the Florida man exists for a reason, and Ron DeSantis is becoming, you know, chief Florida man,
number one
in the midst of all this coronavirus pandemic. But he has spoken, and he is allowing that saying that the WWE is essential, so they can start resuming their live show broadcast from, I guess, an empty arena or whatever. Just, you know, 2-3 people in the ring at a time with 2 wrestlers and a ref. It's pretty good, pretty small numbers, but that opens the door for Dana White and the UFC to run shows in Florida, which that gets more interesting for us. So if we only have to miss UFC 249 and they're able to pick up with some fights from 250, start piecing together some cards. Is it feasible that we can see Tony and Habib before Ramadan?
You got to think Russia's got to open their borders first.
That's what
That's true. That's true.
Yep. It all depends whether or not Khabib can get out of Russia.
So Ron DeSantis doesn't speak for Russia.
Sadly.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I really thought Florida man superseded that.
You know, when you said Florida man, I thought you was going to talk about how they opened the beaches and then immediately like millions of people flocked the beach.
Insane.
And now it's going to be worse than ever. That's funny.
And the thing is the beaches were only intended to be open for exercise, like select hours that it's open, that you can go and run on the beach or walk your dog along the beach or whatever. But no, people just want to go out there with their fucking umbrellas and their baskets and go out there and eat their chips and drink their sodas and just enjoy the waves.
It showed a picture and it looked like spring break. It was like every inch was a person.
Yeah.
Hey, Jacksonville, baby, we represent, because that's the city that opened them, is the city of Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Whatever, man.
There's nothing we can do about it, right?
No. Speaking about Jacksonville, you know, our homies Wallow and Chris over at the McDojo show, they just relaunched the new brand and all that stuff, and they're already putting out awesome episodes. I listened to one today, is their brand new episode where they had a dude named Big Lon, the creator of the high rollers competitions. It's pretty well known in the jiu-jitsu and the MMA community. They had him on and he was telling some hilarious stories. Zach, I think you in particular would really get a kick out of this episode, so you're going to need to check it out. But they have a running gag on the show that Chris hates Tyrone Woodley, and Tyrone Woodley, you know, he hates him for his own reasons or whatever, but Wallow always throws it up that he only hates him because he's black. And Wallow was trying to bait Chris into it the entire time that Big Lon was on their podcast. And then Big Lon finally was like, you know what? I'm just going to call Tyrone Woodley. So they actually had Tyrone Woodley on their show talking shit to Chris. So it was pretty fantastic. So you'll have to go and check that shit out.
God damn, that's nuts.
Yeah, man, they're doing great. I'm so happy for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, they've been really good for us, ever since we started. And you went on their show way back when, and
yeah,
I've been on their show. You've been on their show. Wallow's been with us. Yeah, it's been great. They're our resident MMA experts, quote unquote.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was actually on their episode 100.
Oh, nice.
So if that's the case, I'll have to go back and fact check her. I mean, if not, fuck it, who cares? But we should have Wallow on our episode 100 that's coming up in like what, 2 months or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's perfect.
So Wallow, if you're out there listening, if you want to come be part of episode 100, you're more than welcome to join us, buddy.
Absolutely.
So what else is going on for you guys? What else is entertaining you in this void that we're living in called COVID-19, where there is no sports?
You know, the other day, MLB Network had on last year's NLCS, and I was like, oh, Cardinals. Yeah, I'll watch it. I couldn't do it, man. I could not do it. I don't remember which game it was, but Ozuna missed a give me can of corn fly ball, and I had to turn it off. I was like, I watched this last year. I can't fucking do it again. So the throwback sports, at least for the Cardinals, just wasn't doing it for me. So I've been sticking to just playing video games, still getting down on Call of Duty, watching Netflix, whatever we decide to watch at any given moment.
You need to go back and watch Cardinals games from 2011 postseason.
Yeah, no kidding.
Justin, what about you? What have you been doing, bud?
Well, I've been getting ready for the draft. Of course, watching the league. I started over and been watching Workaholics again as well. Just trash TV.
Another great series. I love it.
because I watched The Office not too long ago. I mean, I kind of, like I said, just trash TV, man. That, and I'm working 60 hours every week, so I'm always at this desk. So
Stacking that bread.
Have you ever seen Parks and Rec, Justin?
I watched it not too long ago again.
Oh, did you? Okay.
That Community,
Yeah. Community just came out on Netflix, didn't it?
I watched it as soon as it came out again. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I do a lot of, I'm at this desk a lot, guys. And school's out now until summer, so that's something that took away my time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the boxing gym. I'm just literally watching trash on TV.
Well, let's try to get some interviews set up and try to get some people on the podcast and get some exclusive content and then some exclusive guests to come on and hang out and talk to us. Sounds like we've got time to watch all this trash TV. We could be reaching out and talking to these fighters that we know.
Even they're watching trash right now.
Yeah, I know. So they've got nothing better to do than come talk about the trash TV that they're watching with us. For me, I've been watching a lot of trash TV too. I've been watching, believe it or not, a lot of stuff about religious cults. All these Netflix documentaries and stuff like that. They've got a few docuseries that I've been watching. One called Wild Wild Country.
Yeah.
It's about the Bhagavan that came and bought up a bunch of land in Oregon and had his cult going on out there.
Yeah, I didn't finish that one. It's been out for a while. We watched maybe 3 or 4 episodes of it, and it just fell off for whatever reason. But that's a wild one. They basically bought up an entire town essentially, and bust a bunch of people in and converted them to their cult or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah, they were bussing in homeless people from cities all over the United States and making them residents of this small little town in Oregon and taking over their political systems, taking over a lot of things. It was pretty interesting to hear about. Yeah.
I've got a podcast for you that you can do YouTube if you like that, or just the straight audio version. Joe Rogan, 1459. His guest was Tom O'Neill. It's an absolute must watch, must listen. Tom O'Neill studied Charles Manson's case, if you will. And there's a huge conspiracy behind it where there's and I haven't finished the episode, but as far as I've gotten, there's proven documentation where the CIA was doing weird shit back in the 70s, and the theory is that Charles Manson was basically like a tool of the CIA to essentially make the hippie culture look bad and for people to not like hippies, thus making the whole movement die and just go away so that the government could continue doing what they were doing, and they didn't have, people doing drugs and being free like the hippies were back then. And they go into great detail of all kinds of details that prove their theory or whatever. But man, it was a freaking insane podcast up until I think I've watched about an hour and a half of it. And it's an absolute must watch. It's insane.
What episode number was it? 1459?
Yeah, I believe it's his most recent.
Okay, that makes it a lot easier.
I started listening to it, but I got back home. I'm gonna have to finish it out. Like I said, I listened to the first 15 minutes of it.
It's his second to most recent.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, you were talking about the CIA up to sneaky stuff and all that. Another one of the things that we've been watching is the Waco docuseries. I don't know if either of you have ever caught that. It's been out on Netflix since 2018, but we're watching it now, and it's ATF, all those guys, FBI, they acted very inappropriate in that situation as well. And that's the American government attacking American civilians in a crazy situation. So if you haven't watched it, that's something good that you can watch to just learn something that is a true thing that happened in our country's history.
Yeah. That town was tarnished because of that, and everyone knew Waco because of that incident, and that's another absolutely wild one.
Yeah. They touch on Ruby Ridge in the docuseries as well, which is another incident that happened. If you don't know about, I advise you go read up on it. But it's crazy the things that are out there that you can use during this time when we don't have sports, because normally on a Monday night, Sunday night, Tuesday night, whatever it is, I would have baseball on the TV, so I wouldn't be watching these docuseries. I wouldn't be watching all this stuff on Netflix and all that stuff. So
yep, for sure.
It's extended my winter viewership, and I guess some of the summer lineup on Netflix isn't so bad.
Right.
It could be worse.
Yeah.
Could be worse. But yeah, you guys have anything else you want us to talk about?
I'm good.
I say Monday we're going to do a big recap of the NFL draft. Let's give some draft grades. And guys, if you're listening, share with us what your draft thoughts are as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I made my bold prediction, or not bold prediction, but my hot take on Joe Burrow and everyone else that should be picked before him. So if you've got a hot take, if you think one of these guys is the next greatest thing, let us know.
Yeah. And, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Jags, they do become movers at the draft. And Leonard Fournette is packaged in a deal. And the Jags end up moving up somewhere within the top 3 to get the guy that they want.
Yeah, and I could see the Redskins agreeing to that deal.
And I don't know who has the 3rd overall pick. Is it Detroit maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway,
Not sure. I know that they're talking about us moving up and taking over the Bears pick at 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I could tell you my hot take would be either we move up and take Brown, or we stay back and we take Chauson or Henderson, the cornerback from Florida. We will have one of those 3 players come Thursday.
You were right. Detroit does have the 3rd pick.
Yeah, I thought it was Detroit for some reason. So I could see the Jags making that deal work with either one of those teams. Matt Patricia has been known to make crazy moves. So
that works out for him because 1 and 2 is basically set in stone. Burrow and Young are going to go unless something crazy happens. Those are your 1-2 picks.
Yep.
So their 3 will be there waiting on them if that's what they want to do.
Exactly. So we'll see. Come Thursday, it's going to be exciting. Like Justin said, we'll do a full draft recap episode come next Monday night on the podcast. And I do think on Thursday night we have a live show that we're going to have, and it's actually this week going to be the audio engineers. I talked about it last week and I misspoke. We had Ian on this past Thursday, but this week Alec and Chase are going to be on, and they're going to talk about the audio engineering and the life of a sound guy. So that should be a lot of fun. Zach, I know you're going to really enjoy that episode, and it's going to be something that I hope is educational for all of us. And then we can start watching the draft. So
yeah,
till then, I hope you guys enjoyed listening. Tune back in next Monday night when we talk about the draft, and we will see you then. Peace.
Thanks for listening. New episodes are recorded every week.